Hello, Moist Charlie Clips fam. So, as promised, I want to do a little debriefing on One Piece. As many of you know, I've been actively chipping away at One Piece for like 2 years now, maybe a little longer than 2 years, because I really wanted to get into the hype. I wanted to feel what One Piece fans feel, where it's talked about as one of the best pieces of fiction ever written in the history of our species. And I'd never really gotten into it. So, about 2 years ago, I made the decision to take the plunge. I was going to cannonball into the pool and just let it ride. And man, what a laborious, slow journey it has been. So, we're just going to go through the full thing. I just finished the Skypiea arc, so I'm just going to cover all of my feelings up till this point. Now, I knew this show was going to be a bit of a slow burn, which I'm completely fine with. In fact, there's a lot of slow burn anime that I enjoy. I don't need just fucking nuts to butts action, like beautiful, animation on every fight or anything like that. But what I didn't expect with One Piece is just how long it takes for characters to become interesting. Now that I'm 200 episodes in, characters that were introduced in the very beginning are just now starting to grow on me and become what I feel is a more fleshed out, more three-dimensional character as opposed to just 2D tropey shit. Like, example, Sanji. Sanji's just like, girl crazy, always fucking hearts in his eyes, auga, auga, like for the entire duration of his character arcs through Skypiea. Now, post Skypiea, or getting to post Skypiea, I feel very differently about him now. I feel like he's going in a different direction that is more interesting. Zoro is a character that I liked from the beginning and I like more now. But he very much is just like stoic, beat ass, eat ass kind of cool shonen character. He hasn't had like a ton of depth carved out for him as of this moment, but he's just a cool character. Luffy, on the other hand, has not changed one fucking bit, and I find a lot of his character traits extremely grating. In Skypiea, I could not stress how much of a headache it was every time they went to Luffy in the belly of the fucking snake. He spent like 40 episodes in the snake's belly going, "This is a weird cave. This is a weird cave. Such a weird cave. Gum Gum Gatling on the cave walls. I'm gonna bust out." For 40 fucking episodes until other members, Nami and them get in there and like lead him out. It's just Luffy's character I am still not fully sold on. I don't really enjoy Luffy. He's like my least favorite character of the Straw Hat crew. He is just in this perpetual daze, like a trance of stupid juice running through his veins. He's always just meat, 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 can't wait to eat meat, and then just always fucking dumb. He's only ever serious at the very end of a fight or at the very beginning of a fight, and it usually only lasts for like 15, 20 seconds so far. I get that he's that way intentionally, but that doesn't mean that I like that aspect of him. Like, it's fine to have goofiness for your main character, but he shouldn't be perpetually goofy all of the time, and so far he has been, even in extremely serious circumstances. Just the constant stupidity and like unrelenting silliness of him is just becoming so tiresome. And I'm hoping that at some point they ease off the gas on that aspect of his character. But I do want to make it clear, overall, I am enjoying the show more now. Alabasta arc was really good. Skypiea, not so much. Everything in Skypiea I thought was extremely underwhelming and a step back from Alabasta, except for its villain. Inaru is really cool, and I love how they played off of Luffy being the rubber man and Inaru being obviously all lightning based, and how it just doesn't work on Luffy because he's the fucking rubber man and rubber doesn't exist up there in Skypiea. So that was a really cool thing. And then also playing around with Inaru's mantra where he's able to like predict your moves, like read your moves in the future. Like Luffy combats this by basically just slapping around his ship and hitting him with ricochet blows so that way Luffy's not thinking about anything so Inaru can't read his mind, which I thought was very creative and cool. There were good moments of Skypiea and I really like everything towards the end with the Inaru fight. But overall, it was a slog to get through. It took me close to 6 months to finish Skypiea because I just kept falling asleep since it was such a snooze fest for so much of it. The priests were trash. All of the priest moments were absolutely awful. Uh, so that was a good chunk of it. But then also just a lot of the stuff about Skypiea, while I thought conceptually was cool, was executed really underwhelmingly. Now, I understand most people say the manga is a lot better pacing than the anime, and I bet you're probably right, but I've already committed to the anime as my main form of digesting this story. And like I said, I am enjoying it more now than I did. So I'm hoping that it's really only up from here. I want to give my full thoughts on everything, like I said, so let me dial back the clock a little bit here. A lot of people said Arlong Park is like one of the best arcs in One Piece. I fucking hated Arlong. I couldn't stand anything about that. I think Arlong was a pretty cool villain, but the second that it actually came down to like the payoff where Luffy's challenging Arlong, it was absolutely fucking awful. Like, I thought it was such a wet fart of a conclusion. They hype up Arlong, you get a lot of information about Nami, which I appreciated. Nami actually had a lot of depth given to her very early on, so she, for a little while, was probably one of my favorite characters just because I knew the most about her and that she had a good, sympathetic story. But Arlong, this whole arc, was spent, like, hyping up just how fearsome he is, the Fishman as well. But then it boils down to Luffy ending it in, like, a single axe kick. And the axe kick was, like, cool, like, it looked cool, but having it all end in one blow is not satisfying at all, and it really kind of just pisses on the whole journey getting to that point, in my opinion. You need to have like a satisfying conclusion to a character like that. And it brings me to my next complaint, that no bad guys die. Like, even from the very beginning, Don Krieg, they hype up Don Krieg. He was kind of shit, obviously, but I mean, it was early on. I understand it's going to be difficult to make a cool villain. In fact, Mihawk was the coolest part of this entire section. Mihawk coming in during the Don Krieg moments. But Don Krieg gets defeated and carried away. You know, like, they fucking hoist him up like Rudy after the Notre Dame win, you know? Like, they hoist him out, they sail away, and he's fine. Like, he lives. But he never comes back into the story. And I got curious, so I looked up if he ever comes back, and from as I understand it, he doesn't. But he's still alive. So if he's still alive but doesn't come back, why not just kill him? It's a lot more sensical in the universe, especially for a situation like they were in, if you would just kill that big bad. It's not like they drive home this idea that, like, killing is this ultimate evil thing. You know, Luffy's not fucking Batman, right? Like, Luffy understands the danger with fighting and all of it. So I really think it would have made more sense to be killing these, they're not major villains, but they were for their time, like in their arc, these bad guys. Kudo, another example. Kudo was hyped up, this introduced Usopp, like, this was a big moment. I'm still not the biggest Usopp enthusiast or anything, like, Usopp's still pretty fucking annoying, but he's having more moments now where I appreciate some of his character. But I'm getting sidetracked. Kudo was the big bad of that time, and once again, gets defeated relatively easily. Like, there was never really feeling like any big stakes there or any real challenge. Gets defeated, but not killed. So he's still alive, sails off, you know, he's gone, but alive. Why? I just feel like it makes more sense to be killing those characters. There's only a couple instances so far where they, like, have a villain that they defeat, you know, like a Pokemon battle, like, oh, the enemy fainted, where I feel like it makes sense that that happened. And that's, like, when that's the case, I get it, but those are just rare exceptions. And it's also not just bad guys. It seems like there's a big apprehension to killing any characters at all, no matter if they're good, bad, or if they're major or minor. Another example of this is during the Alabasta arc, which I do like a lot, they have a character named Pell. And at one point, Pell carries like a goddamn nuclear bomb away in order to save everyone. It's a very noble sacrifice moment. He picks up the bomb and he's flying up into the goddamn stratosphere like an actual hero, a patriot, you know, like that scene from the Iron Giant, I'm Superman. Pell carries this bomb up there, it blows up, and you're under the impression Pell has sacrificed himself for everyone, and it's a really powerful moment. But it turns out Pell's alive. Somehow. Just because. He's just alive. Why? You have this incredible character moment, you have all of this, like, great setup for this moment. This would conclude everything that Pell has been set up for, and you have the bomb, it blows up. He should have died, but he doesn't, for no reason, and he's not even a major character. Pell was, by all definitions, a minor side character, but they couldn't even kill him. They couldn't pull the trigger on something like that, which would have been better. Like, up until now, I don't think there has been a single character death, good or bad, in anything outside of flashbacks. All character deaths that we have been made aware of so far have all been in flashbacks, or just completely nameless henchmen that caught some strays. Like, other than that, I don't think there have been any, like, noteworthy deaths at all, in general. Which I just think is so silly. Like, I don't understand exactly why. Now, I know that does change in the future. Tiana watched all of One Piece. I know a lot of where this story goes and, like, character deaths. So I'm looking forward to when we start getting to that point where characters do die, because I think that improves the overall stakes in the narrative. Because if you're going into these episodes, like I am, knowing that, oh, this guy's probably not going to die because no one else has so far, then there's really no stakes. Also, I take it back, there has been one death that I can think of off the top of my head right now, and that was the chunky priest in Skypiea, the Ordeal of Spheres, the ball guy, the ball juggler. He is dead, and the only reason we know he's dead is because his brothers were like, "You killed him," and that's the confirmation. Never mind, scratch that. I decided to look it up. He's not actually dead, I see. I must not have got to the episode where they sentence him and the other priest to their cloud drifting prison sentence. So, no one that I can think of in this show so far has died outside of flashbacks. But yeah, anyway, that's just another thing that I feel like is just a little lacking, is stakes, because no characters are actually dying or anything, so everything's kind of got like a happy ending and happy resolution right now. But yeah, overall, it's not like I hate the show. I really didn't like it and really had to force myself to keep watching it early on, but now I am enjoying it a lot more, and I'm hoping that it only continues to get better. Also, shoutouts to Chopper, because I also really like Chopper. I forgot to mention that. Chopper's whole story I thought was also pretty good, and he is still, like, he gets very tropey. Like, he started off with a lot of depth to him, and now he's kind of fallen into more of a two-dimensional comic relief character, which I think is a little weird, but I'm sure that it's just setting him up for, like, big moments coming forward. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of where I'm at One Piece. Just finished Skypiea. I don't remember what the next arc I'm going into is, but I'll keep you all posted here on Moist Charlie Clips. So yeah. You all know me. I'm not a big believer in the paranormal. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, gnomes, Wi-Fi. All just a bunch of horseradish if you ask me. And you know what else I didn't believe in until recently? One Piece being good. But now everything I thought I knew is crumbling around me, because I am actually, finally, enjoying One Piece. After 2 years of committing time to watching this to see if I'll ever enjoy it. I just finished Water 7 and Innie's Lobby, and I actually really liked those arcs. Now, typically, this is a video I would post on my second channel, Moist Charlie Clips, because that's where I've been updating people on my One Piece progress, and it's also just a channel where I've been posting a bunch of other weird shit, so go subscribe to that channel, it'll make you more attractive. But the reason I decided not to put it on that channel this time is because this is such a pivotal moment in my anime viewing career. This is the biggest anime ever made, and biggest manga by extension, and I've never liked it. I've always shouted bah humbug about all the people going crazy about how good One Piece is. But now, after 300-something episodes, I'm finally enjoying it. I'd given One Piece so many chances over the years to really grip me, and it never has, so I always thought that everyone that was preaching the gospel of One Piece being the best fiction ever produced, I thought they were all just a bunch of lunatics, like solar panel scammers just making up lies. You know, I thought that whole concept that One Piece was anything more than dog shit was more made up than the boogeyman. But I decided about 2 years ago now to really buckle down, grit my teeth, and just catch up on One Piece to see if it ever actually gets good. I was willing to subject myself to some torture with early One Piece seasons in order to see if the grass was ever greener on the other side when we finally reached, like, episode 250. There's a very popular meme about, like, no, bro, you have to give it, like, 9 seasons before the show gets good. You have to watch, 400 episodes before you start to like it. You just have to invest the time in it to really get the payoff. And my god, that couldn't be more true for One Piece. It took me 300 episodes to finally get to this point. That's not exactly, that's not nothing. That's a long time spent of not enjoying something before you start liking it. eating vegetables before you finally get to the main course that you wanted to eat. So I understand why people don't usually subscribe to that belief. Like, it's not worth investing that much time into a show you don't even like until like 300 episodes in, where you get like hypnotized into liking it maybe. I get it. But for One Piece, you know what? I'll just say it's been worth it. I'm not conceding on any of the points I ever made about the previous seasons prior to Water 7, because I still think the pacing was glacial and bad. The outright refusal to actually kill any characters outside of flashbacks was cowardly and takes a lot of the wind out of the sails of stakes when it comes to the show, as well as a couple of other arguments I've made a lot in the past that I don't need to just regurgitate here. Up until this point, there wasn't a whole lot I liked about it other than a couple of characters like Zoro and Chopper, and I did like the Alabasta arc overall, but on the whole, wasn't really feeling One Piece. I wasn't exactly pumping my fist getting excited for it. It was a show that literally was a sleep aid. Like, this was the cure for insomnia for the first 240 episodes. Like, it was so goddamn boring and generic. I wasn't enjoying it. But then, once I got to Water 7, things really started to turn up. Like a lot of people said. Most people actually, when I was talking about this on stream across my journey, always said that you have to at least get to Water 7 before it gets really good. And I can't fucking believe it, but they were right. It actually is good. So, I'm not just going to repeat all of the things I've said on my second channel about One Piece so far with my updates, so I'll just give you the brief cliff notes. I like some of the characters like Zoro and Chopper. I cannot stand Luffy. He's my least favorite character, and now after finishing Enies Lobby, he is still my least favorite character. This fucking goober only has 2 modes. It's stupid, and then stupid and hungry. And then I guess a third mode when he's fighting. And then he's, at least he's not being annoying. Like, he's just a fucking grating character, and as I understand it, you either love or hate him. And unfortunately, I'm on the hate him side. I do not like him. He is very, very annoying, and I get that that's his whole character trait, but so far he has not evolved past that or developed past it at all. And I can never forgive this show for what it did during Skypiea, where it just put Luffy in the belly of a giant snake, and he stayed there for like 30 fucking episodes straight, and just was like left in stupid juice and like in this trance of idiot moron mode, where he just kept like punching walls, and he's like, oh, this is such a weird cave. Man, am I ever gonna leave this weird cave? Such a weird cave. Like, he himself made Skypiea almost unwatchable, because he is just a perpetual stupid character. And that's just not that fun to watch, especially when it holds everything back. A lot of the problems are caused because Luffy is stupid, and I think that's just a weak plot point that drives things forward, or at least leading up to Water 7 and Enies Lobby. There was a lot of moments where Luffy was literally the reason things went bad, because he is dumb. Like, he is just legitimately dumb, and that's it. Like, he's just stupid. Being stuck in the belly of a snake for so long is beyond frustrating to watch, because it just keeps repeating itself. Ah, this is a weird cave. God, this cave is so weird. Gum Gum Gatling. Ah, these cave walls are so big. Cave is weird. And then he's finally freed from the snake at the very fucking end. He's like, oh, you guys came into the weird cave to save me? They're like, Luffy, it's a snake. What do you mean it's a snake? It's a cave. It's just so fucking, it's so lame. It's so lame. I cannot stand Luffy as a character. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 moments where he's been serious, and even then, he's still a bit of a goofball. And that's, I don't know, I just don't really like that kind of character trait hammered in nonstop. But all the other characters so far, for the most part, I do like, with Zoro and Chopper being my favorite. Zoro, because he's just a perpetual badass, and he is usually always serious, and when he's not, it's actually kind of rewarding to see him lighten up. And Chopper, because I actually really like Chopper's backstory. So far, he's one of the few characters that got a lot of attention given to them prior to Water 7, of course. And I liked that. I liked everything about his motivation, his drive, where he's come from, and how he grows. Now, we get to Water 7, and every character is getting a lot more to them, especially Nico Robin, the most mysterious of the crew. And there's a lot of drama that happens with Usopp leaving the crew after the Going Merry is deemed insalvageable. They can't, revive her. They couldn't get the paddles out and fucking shock it back. It was kaput. It's dead. And Usopp he's not having it. He thinks Luffy and the crew gave up on the Going Merry too early. So Usopp leaves the crew after challenging Luffy to a duel, and it's very emotional. It's very emotional. I didn't like Usopp that much until Water 7. Now I really like Usopp. And by extension, his alter ego, Sniper King. Like, everything I complained about up until Water 7, they are directly addressing and making better, except Luffy. So I'm getting excited here. The fights are better. I mean, I did like the Iniru fight from the Skypiea arc, even though Skypiea as a whole absolutely blew filthy fucking ass. But the Iniru fight at the end I thought was fantastic. And now we're seeing a lot more great fights in these two arcs. So I don't know, I've just been really liking it a lot more. Though most of my complaints are still here. I still fucking hate how nobody dies. Nobody dies in this show outside of a flashback. Only when they're doing flashbacks do they have deaths so far. There's no real integral character deaths or really emotional moments so far. The biggest culprit, the biggest crime, and this was an affront to God when it comes to bad writing, is in the Alabasta arc when Pell takes like the nuclear bomb that's about to blow up Alabasta, flies it up into the sunset in order to sacrifice himself, a noble sacrifice, completing his character arc perfectly, and he does that, bomb blows up, everyone's expecting Pell to be dead because he just ate a goddamn nuclear bomb for breakfast, but then he's not dead. He's still alive. He still lives because they don't kill anyone off in this fucking show. And I think that's such a misstep. All of the big bad villains are still alive. Luffy just knocks them unconscious like it's a Pokemon fight. That is underwhelming. I think that's very underwhelming, especially for the Pirate King. You know, the kid who wants to be the Pirate King. The crew, the Pirate Hunter, Zoro. Like, it's just underwhelming. So that complaint is still here even after Enies Lobby. But I know there are character deaths coming up. I've been spoiled, obviously, on where the show goes because Tiana watched all of it in a short period of time, so I saw a lot of it. And I know there are character deaths that come up, but even still, as of right now, it's just lackluster. Because I always know, no matter what, they're not going to kill off even minor characters, even characters that don't have a whole lot to contribute. Nothing really happens to them. So that always grinds my ass grease. Like, I really do still have an issue with that, pulling all of these punches when it would be a lot more impactful to the story if they would just commit to killing some characters that obviously were being set up for something like that. But anyway, that's probably still my biggest complaint. But overall, Water 7 and Enies Lobby have done wonders for making this show enjoyable. The villains are much more interesting here. It's introducing a ton of new, deeper underlying issues that are going on in the world around them, even outside of the immediate problems. The overarching plot continues to get bigger in the scale and scope of it, so it's just finally being fucking interesting. And not just a slog or a tedious chore to get through. The reason it's taken me 2 years to even get this far into the show is because I would constantly fall asleep throughout these episodes. So it would take me like a month, 2 months, or even sometimes 3 months to finish a single episode because every time I'd put it on, it would put me to sleep. It was more effective than NyQuil. Like, some of these episodes in the other arcs were just so meaningless and so boring. Like, I wasn't invested in it. And there is still some of those sins committed even in this arc, in these two arcs. Like, for example, in the middle of very high-stakes stuff, when they're working to get Nico Robin back on the crew after learning the truth about why she betrayed them, in the middle of that, there is, I think it's 4 episodes of just flashback filler. In the middle of, like, this extremely important moment with Nico Robin opening up about her past, you know, wanting to come back to the Straw Hats, but can't because of the Buster order. And during this, like, as they're squaring off with all of the bad guys, and with Nico there as well, they just, like, fucking shoehorn in, like, 4 filler episodes. Why? What, like in the middle of very important stuff. At least I think it was at that part. I'm already getting a little foggy on exactly when those flashback fillers come in, but I'm pretty sure it's there. And it's just, you know, it's unnecessary. It doesn't add anything. All it does is ruin, once again, the pacing and detract from the enjoyment. So there are still those moments here, even in what I consider to be the best arcs of the show so far, but they're much lesser and a lot less egregious. So overall, I just like the direction Water 7 and Enies Lobby is taking the show. I'm finally starting to see how this opens up into something very special for the first time. So yeah, I'm finally liking One Piece. I know this isn't the most like detailed Moist Meter review breakdown of Water 7 and Enies Lobby, but I don't really think that's necessary. All of you watching this have probably already formed your opinions about One Piece, and there's not a whole lot I can do to like change your mind. All I can speak to is what I've found not enjoyable versus enjoyable. And right now, Water 7 and Enies Lobby is exactly what I'm looking for from a show like One Piece. So I'm hoping the coming arcs continue that energy and keep that momentum pumping. So yeah, finally liking One Piece. That's about it. So yeah, I finished Fishman Island. Thanks to the One Piece card game, it motivated me to finish fucking god-awful Fishman Island. What was so bad about it? Oh, you know what? Here. I'm going to be opening some One Piece cards here in a minute anyway. Might as well talk about Fishman Island and everything I hated about it. Fishman Island takes everything that One Piece was doing really well in Marineford and wipes its whole ass with it. The Fishman Island arc is a tedious chore to push through, and it is unwatchable without One Piece. One Piece is a godsend and the only way to actually push through that arc. Everything about it undoes everything Marineford did great. It is truly a wash. Like, it is trash. And it's so insulting that it's a really important arc because of, like, Shirahoshi. But my god. So, the villain might legitimately be the worst villain I've ever seen in anime. Hody Jones is just a diet, great value Arlong, but significantly more cringe. And I feel like has no real character to him at all, other than just being addicted to meth. That's it. Like, he's just a pill-popping lunatic, and nothing beyond that. He's not clever, he's not crafty, he's not even strong. Like, the Straw Hats are 1,000 times more powerful than all of the villains, so anytime they fight, it's instantly over. There's no tension. It's so dumb. Like, everyone's just cannon fodder in the arc. And Sanji is miserable in the first, 20 episodes where he just constantly starts bleeding out from nosebleeds, which was a really good gag initially in the beginning of that arc, but they kept playing it up, and he just had nothing to do until the very end. Didn't you take 8 months finishing that? Yeah, because it sucks. It's so boring. It's so boring. Like, if I didn't get into the One Piece card game, I probably still wouldn't have bothered finishing Fishman Island. Like, there's just never any motivation to watch it. Even with One Piece, it's just bad. Nosebleed, a good gag, is a terrible take. It was just fine the first time it happened in the arc, because that's just part of Sanji's character. So they played it off in the beginning of the arc, and it's like, ha ha ha, good one. And then it keeps happening for 20 episodes. And then it becomes a pivotal point of Sanji in the beginning, where he does nothing in the arc. Just read the manga. Yeah, I know, but I've already committed to catching up on anime only. Yeah, Fishman Island is undoubtedly the worst arc. Not even close. I watched all of One Piece in a year. Fishman Island took 4 months because of it. Yeah, because it's a complete fucking waste of time. It truly is a waste. It's almost as, well, it is worse than, what was that Wampo arc? What the fuck was that one? I forgot the name of that arc. Drum Island or something? It's actually worse than that. No, I know it gets good after Fishman Island. I know everything that happens. But it's almost impossible to go through Fishman Island. It super sucks. Did you like Skypiea? Fucking hated Skypiea. I did not like Skypiea at all, which is apparently another extremely important one to the overarching story. I thought Skypiea was trash, Fishman Island is worse. What's your favorite so far then? Marineford. Not close. Not even close. Do you count Impelled Down with Marineford? I do. I kind of put them both together. But I know they're two separate arcs. But when I say Marineford, I'm including Impelled Down. Foxy Pirate trumps Marineford. I don't know about that. Fucking Davy back games. I just know Charlie will suffer through Wano up until the very end. I don't think so. Like I said, I know everything that happens in the next coming arcs. I know pretty much everything about One Piece. Because I caught little bits and pieces of the vast majority of the episodes. So I don't think I'm going to dislike Wano. I might not like Punk Hazard all that much. But we'll see. It's not going to be worse than Fishman. Favorite Straw Hat? Zoro. Zoro's still my favorite so far. Would you consider One Piece the greatest anime? Nope. I haven't caught up yet. But I wouldn't consider it the greatest anime yet. I'm liking it. I like it a lot. But I don't think it's the greatest anime. What's the greatest then? For the greatest anime, you'd have to go to the actual huge classics that legitimately changed it. So a Dragon Ball, an Akira, the main, those pushed anime into the mainstream. For something to be the greatest, I think it has to be historically significant to the overall medium. Even something God, what was it called? I didn't watch it growing up, but god damn it, what was it? Not Ninja Scroll. What the fuck was it? Ghost in the Shell. I don't know why I struggled so hard with Ghost in the Shell. What's a beloved anime you can't stand? Easy answer is Rurouni Kenshin. I used to love Rurouni Kenshin growing up. Turns out the author is a pedophile who got a slap on the wrist, got a small fine, no jail time for being a legitimate pedophile with tons of child porn. And the manga industry welcomed him back with open arms. But I guess it's kind of cheating because it's not like a beloved anime I didn't like. Like, I used to really like Rurouni Kenshin, but now I hate it because of him. One Piece or Naruto? I think One Piece is a better story. Like, I am blown away by One Piece's story and how deep and very well told it is for the most part. The pacing in the anime betrays the really good writing. But I think Naruto actually has probably the best choreography in all of anime. I was actually, earlier today, re-watching Naruto fight scenes, just reminiscing on how good it was. It's really, even all these years later, still kind of unmatched. Even with some of the more recent like smash hits like Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, the choreography doesn't really touch Naruto, like prime Naruto. Like, the animation's so much better in the modern age, but the choreography in Naruto is inspired. Kakashi Obito fight still top 3 in anime. That's actually what sent me down the rabbit hole again. It's so good. It's still so good. So I saw this floating around on Twitter earlier today, and I was like, fuck, it's amazing. And then I just started going back and rewatching classic fights. Rock Lee vs. Gaara, of course, is the classic. Agreed. Rock Lee, one of the most wasted characters of all time. I know, he got done so dirty. It's such a shame. Naruto has some of the hypest shit sandwiched in between mountains of filler. Yeah, well, it's not as bad as Boruto. Boruto is 60% filler or something crazy like that. But Boruto's got some really hype fights too. I don't know why there's so much trash plaguing Naruto and Boruto. So much filler. Isn't it 80%? Is it 80%? I keep forgetting. I'll look it up again. It's 74% filler. Nope. That was over 2 years ago. As of this year, at least according to this, it's 84% filler. I don't know which to believe, but either way, it's over 70% of that show is filler. What's even the point at that rate? I don't know why they don't just stop. Like, I don't know why for Boruto they didn't just stop when the manga went on hiatus. Or maybe they did, and I'm unfamiliar, but I know the manga's on hiatus, and I know that it's not a weekly manga. Thus, for the production on the anime, they just keep filling in blanks with shit nobody wants to watch. Which I don't see the point. It's completely just a waste of time. They need a Boruto Kai. That's so true. Favorite fight in all of anime? I'd have to really think about it. All of the ones that pop in my head are actually Naruto. The only one that pops into my... Well, there's 2 that pop into my head that aren't Naruto. And this one's just kind of recency bias, but Sukuna vs. Mahoraga. And Bleach, actually. The first fight, or the final fight with Captain Kuchiki. Did DBZ have any great fights? For its time, it did. For most sane people, it's extremely difficult to stick with a hobby that you don't like for an extended period of time. It kind of defeats the purpose of having a hobby. Why would you have a hobby of something you don't enjoy? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. Might as well just be banging your head against a wall or slamming a toilet seat lid on your head. There's no real reason to do it, so if you don't like it, stop. Well, no one ever called me a sane man. So I've stuck with a hobby for a little over 4 years now. And it's time for my biannual check-in, kind of, on it. One Piece. Catching up on the One Piece anime. I started it at the beginning of COVID. And I swore with my hand on a stack of Bibles that I would catch up to the anime, which is well over 1,000 episodes at this point. And I'd like to report my progress here, because it has been tough. One Piece has some very high highs and some very low lows. There's some hits, there's some shits, and let me tell you, those shits be shittin'. They are rough. I swear to God, Ponce de Leon's expedition to Florida probably wasn't as brutal as the journey through some of these One Piece arcs. Some of these arcs are just downright inhumane to sit through, like something Guantanamo Bay would subject you to. Like, there are torturous methods here with some of these arcs, like Fishman Island. Heaven forbid, we'll get into that in a moment, we'll get into the weeds, but like, having someone sit down and watch Fishman Island is like torture Jack Bauer would subject a terrorist to in 24. It's rough. But hey, You don't get muscles like these without eating some of your vegetables, am I right? So I've been pushing through. I've been fighting off the sleep because trust me, with some of these arcs, it is hypnotic. It is almost impossible to not fall asleep through some of these episodes. But I did it. It's like listening to a Jigglypuff song for a couple of these episodes, but I still endured. And now, I'm happy to say I am halfway through Dressrosa. So I'm pretty deep into the anime now, and I want to give you my overall thoughts on all of it. Now, I did this about a year ago, a year and some change. Much to the chagrin of the entire One Piece community, holy fuck, they ate me alive. They shit my whole ass for me. It was... I was thrown to the wolves. They did not like my takes. But I'm coming at you with more takes in just a moment. Right now, the biggest W take of all time, Goof Juice, is available right now, and there's a huge GamerSupps sale. This is my GamerSupps flavor, strawberry kiwi. It's the best goddamn flavor the world's ever seen. The best beverage, the perfect elixir. It's... Trust me, your eye's going to roll in the back of your skull in umami. It's amazing. Gamersupps.gg. There's a huge sale going on. Pick some up. But I'm back again with more takes. So, I'm really liking One Piece a lot. I was very harsh on Luffy in the last video I made here, but I've really warmed up to him significantly since Marineford. And even... wow. Even in Fishman Island, I actually thought Luffy was great. I was very harsh of Luffy as a character, and I'm not going to just rehash what I said there, but I really think since Time Skipped, he has grown a lot. Like, he still has the exact same quirks and the same personality and everything, but as a character, I really think he's significantly more interesting, and he's not just so two-dimensional, at least not the way I viewed him beforehand. So, I loved Impel Down and Marineford. Those were two absolutely extraordinary arcs. I don't even need to explain why I like them so much. One of my critiques of the show is how nobody dies in it, or died in it. Marineford has big deaths, and they are impactful, and I think they're handled beautifully. So I am much more satisfied with the way that death is handled in the show. I am very appreciative of the direction it's going there. It seems to be much more willing to make beloved characters face real consequences. So I think that adds to the stakes of the show for sure. But there is a huge blemish. So right now I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm in middle of Dressrosa, and there's a huge, huge roadblock I had to push through. Fishman Island arc. I'm just going to play a clip from stream where I go over just how terrible it was. I finished Fishman Island. Thanks to the One Piece card game, it motivated me to finish fucking god-awful Fishman Island. What was so bad about it? Oh, you know what? Here. I'm going to be opening some One Piece cards here in a minute anyway. Might as well talk about Fishman Island and everything I hated about it. Fishman Island takes everything that One Piece was doing really well in Marineford and wipes its whole ass with it. The Fishman Island arc is a tedious chore to push through, and it is unwatchable without One Piece. One Piece is a godsend and the only way to actually push through that arc. Everything about it undoes everything Marineford did great. It is truly a wash. Like, it is trash. And it's so insulting that it's a really important arc because of, like, Shirahoshi. But my god. So, the villain might legitimately be the worst villain I've ever seen in anime. Hody Jones is just a diet, great value Arlong, but significantly more cringe. And I feel like has no real character to him at all, other than just being addicted to meth. That's it. Like, he's just a pill-popping lunatic and nothing beyond that. He's not clever. He's not crafty. He's not even strong. Like, the Straw Hats are 1,000 times more powerful than all of the villains. So anytime they fight, it's instantly over. There's no tension. It's so dumb. Like, everyone's just cannon fodder in the arc. And Sanji is miserable in the first, 20 episodes where he just constantly starts bleeding out from nosebleeds, which was a really good gag initially in the beginning of that arc, but they kept playing it up, and he just had nothing to do until the very end. Didn't you take, 8 months finishing that? Yeah, because it sucks. It's so boring. It's so boring. Like, if I didn't get into the One Piece card game, I probably still wouldn't have bothered finishing Fishman Island. Like, there's just never any motivation to watch it. I could go on and on with all the things I really disliked about Fishman Island. The pacing, every fight being just a complete showcase of how far above the Straw Hats were to the villains, which takes away all of the intensity of the situation. There are just so many things wrong with it. Sanji, Jesus fucking Christ, heavens to Betsy.
just incapacitated for half of the arc because he keeps getting nosebleeds from seeing women, so he's bleeding out constantly. It was, I think, the worst arc in the show, but people said that Punk Hazard wasn't going to be great either, and I disagree. I really liked Punk Hazard, and I think it's because of One Piece. I can't give enough flowers to One Piece. It cuts out so much shit, and apparently Punk Hazard's big complaint was the pacing of it, so I did not have that issue. So I really enjoyed it, and I got to see a lot of Trafalgar Law, and what a badass character that is. Now, he hasn't been fleshed out yet, so I don't know too much about him as like an actual character, but his Devil Fruit is so fucking cool, and every time he's in a scene, he's the best part of it. His fight with Fergo is great. Smoker's here, and I really like Smoker, so that was cool. Overall, I liked Punk Hazard a lot, and I'm really enjoying Dressrosa so far, but I'll wait till I finish Dressrosa to give my thoughts on that arc. I'm not getting into specifics here because I already did in the last one. I just want to say my favorite Straw Hat is still Zoro. I still really like Zoro, but it does seem like he's taking more of a backseat role at the moment. He's not front and center of the last couple arcs. I'm sure he probably will start to creep back up that way soon, and that's fine. I still really like his character a lot, but Luffy's getting close for me now. I am really liking where Luffy is going. It's a lot of fun, and I've come around in a big way on One Piece. I'm a huge One Piece enthusiast now, and I'm super excited to finish Dressrosa and continue to catch up to the anime. So yeah, this was just the little check-in here, yapping about some One Piece. Also, the One Piece card game is absolute fire. That shit is so fun. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.
5 years ago, I embarked on an adventure. Like Ferdinand Magellan circumnavigating the globe, I set sail with people waving goodbye, wishing me luck on my expedition. I vowed that I would catch up with One Piece. Over 1,000 episodes of this show, I was starting from square one, and it didn't matter how long it took. I was going to do it. No matter what comes, I certainly will, and it'll be a load blown with the knowledge that I watched every episode of this show, and I am proud to report that 5 years later, I'm almost there. I just keep getting asked where I'm at in my One Piece journey, so I'm going to give you the update now. I'm knocking on the door of the Egghead arc, and I've been doing these like almost annual updates on One Piece and my thoughts on it, so I figured it was about time since I'm moving past the longest arc in the show so far, which is Wano. Now, I said that I watched every episode. That's just a bold-faced lie. I have been using One Piece the entire journey. I truly would not recommend to my worst enemy to try and watch this show without One Piece or Onigashima paste, because there is so much fat that gets trimmed in these to make it so much better. So some of the arcs people really didn't like from the anime, like Punk Hazard, I actually enjoyed because I watched it through One Piece, which made it much tighter, much snappier, put a smile on my face. I got all of the juice without any of the pulp. And I really appreciated that. So that's my little pro tip for anyone out there that wants to follow in my footsteps with this path I've carved watching over 1,000 fucking episodes of an anime. Don't watch the filler. Don't do that. Don't subject yourself to that. It's not worth it. They wouldn't do that to prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. So I'm going to give you my whole thoughts on the show thus far. Spoiler alert, I fucking love it now. It was a brutal journey in the beginning. I had to really push myself to get through it, but with my iron will and resolve, I was able to persevere and get to the greener pastures. A lot of people call it Stockholm Syndrome. I just call it an acquired taste, and my taste buds began to be a little more refined, and I appreciated it. Also, I just think the show's quality improves drastically 300 episodes in. As I said, I just didn't really like the show in the beginning. It's because the pacing is just glacial, and there is just so much nothing. Like this nothing sandwich of emptiness that just happens so frequently in the early seasons. And I'm gonna be honest here, sports fans, you're not gonna like to hear it. The animation has aged pretty poorly, which is probably why they're going back and redoing the anime from what I've read, like the earlier seasons, to, breathe some more life into it, which I think is a good call. And I just really was not into it. I wasn't sold on the characters. It just moved so slow that it was just this hypnotic fugue state it was putting me in every time I put this fucking thing on. You might remember in my first couple of years on this journey, I was talking about how I literally couldn't finish episodes because I would just fall asleep. It was the actual cure to insomnia. I would turn on an episode,
30 seconds later, I'm going honk shoe. Like, I'm going me, 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 me. Without, like, and I'm committing to trying to watch the episode, but I just can't because it's so fucking boring. And there's glimmers of greatness in the earlier seasons. Like, one of the ones people always point to is Arlong Park. I think that arc super duper sucks. But there are some really great elements to it, like the classic Nami scene, which I'm sure all of you have at least watched pieces of, where she's stabbing her arm with the Arlong tattoo on it, and Luffy comes in. It's very emotional, and it's really well done. But what you don't know is that it's surrounded by the most boring shit ever. That it, like, when you get to that point, it's refreshing, and then it goes right back to being boring. So I just did not like the early seasons of this show. But when you get to, like, episodes 300, if you, for some reason, like me, buckle down and just say, fuck it, I'm gonna do it, we're gonna do it live, and you get to, like, Innie's Lobby and Water 7, it really starts to pay off. Because I think those arcs actually start to push the show forward, and it gets this upward trajectory, this great momentum, and it carries it so well into Impel Down, into Marineford, which I still think is the best arc in the entire series, even after finishing Wano. And then it loses its footing again because it goes to Fishman Island, which is an absolute stain. That is an affront to God himself that arc even exists in the show. But there are some good moments in it, and I know that narratively it's extremely important. Like, you can't skip it, but you're gonna wish you could. After Fishman Island, we go back to greatness. It starts to be good again. And it's in no small part thanks to One Piece helping to cover up some blemishes with what I know was some pacing problems with things like Punk Hazard, as I mentioned, and Dressrosa. But with One Piece coming in there and putting some makeup on it, Dressrosa is nearly a masterpiece. I still think this arc has the best villain in the entire show, at least so far. I haven't finished Egghead. But I think Dofi, best villain in One Piece, hands down. And another thing that helps with these later arcs, these later episodes, is the animation is getting better. It's becoming more popular, it's getting more money, so as these seasons were coming out, they had more budget, and they put more into it, and you can start to see it. So the fights are flashier, the animation is smoother, it pops more, it's more vibrant, it feels a lot better to watch. So I really think One Piece is a show, and I know this is a cliche, that if you give it a try, there's a good chance you might not like it, but if you stick with it, there's a good chance you will like it. I have actually started agreeing with that really large take, and I mean large, I'm talking fucking Wumbo double D titty take, that One Piece is one of the best written pieces of fiction ever conceived. The depth of this show is unreal. I am in awe by how well written this universe is of One Piece. So I am very happy that I stuck with it and pushed through because it has become one of my favorite properties. Like, as I made an update like 6 months ago, maybe even longer, where like I have been so into the show that I actually started playing the card game, literally going to tournaments to compete in the One Piece card game. That's how much I've started to love the IP. And I initially got dogpiled by the One Piece fandom for my Luffy take like a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe. I don't even remember how long it's been, because I just was not liking Luffy. He was like my least favorite main character. And I'm going to wiggle my finger and say, why are you booing me? I'm right. I stand by my take where the early seasons with Luffy, I don't think he is the strongest character. It's very underwhelming when the big fight is brewing that Luffy has to be nerfed by either being too stupid to participate, where he gets himself locked in the belly of a snake, which I still find to be just so fucking frustrating, or where they have him nerfed, then he can't participate at optimal efficiency for a variety of reasons. I don't find that to be fulfilling. I find that to just be really lackluster, and that happened a lot in the earlier arcs of One Piece. So I don't think he ever had a chance to shine and to get deeper. But after Marineford, that doesn't happen as much. It happens occasionally, but not to the same extent, where Luffy would basically be out of like the main story for quite a while other characters were taking care of like the bulk of it, and then he'll come in and save the day. Like that formula doesn't happen as much in the later seasons, so he's a lot better. Now I like Luffy. I enjoy Luffy a lot. He is front and center, especially in Wano, and even when he is nerfed, he's not really nerfed. Like when he's got the Sea Prism Stone handcuffs on, he's in the prison for a while, he's still not nerfed because he's still training. Like, he is using that as an opportunity to train with his hockey. Like, all of that works now because he's no longer just written out for a while where he's just dealing with some kind of boring side quest or chore like in the snake's belly. Now he is actively doing things to work towards the bigger goal with the rest of the crew. So it's a lot better. So those are my overall thoughts on the show, but I want to get specific on Wano since that's the one that I have been in for a long time. It's also the longest arc in the series. It goes for a long time. I will say, biggest critique of it drags. Even using One Pace and even transitioning from One Pace to Onigashima Pace, it still does just drag. And I know this has kind of become infamous. There is just a chase that lasts for like fucking 40 episodes. I don't exactly know how many episodes it lasts, but like there is one group of characters. I'm trying not to get into like big spoilers, even though I know most people watching this are already One Piece fans. Still, just on the slim chance someone's watching this and curious on it, I don't want to ruin it for them. But there is a group of characters that are engaged in just this long chase sequence that just goes on for so many episodes, and it feels like every time it cuts to that, you just roll your eyes and you want it to be over because it doesn't really do much. It's just too long. It's nauseating. And that's really my main harsh critique. There's some other things I could nitpick, but I'm not going to bother. Overall, I think the arc is super fucking strong. I love Odin. I think Odin is great, and Odin becomes this wonderful vessel that you get to experience the past of One Piece through, where you get to learn a lot about Rogers and Whitebeard. It's so good. Like, I think that is so good. And he himself is such an entertaining character that on the surface is very silly, but he's also extremely powerful, like the only person that was able to hurt Kaido, and the animation is so good in this season that all of the fights are really joyous to watch, whereas, again, in earlier seasons, the fights aren't really rewarding. Like, you're not watching One Piece for the fights in the early seasons, but in Wano, I can absolutely see people that just tune in to watch these fights because they're really fucking good. So, Odin is great. All of his retainers around him are great. And also, boy howdy, do they introduce a lot of characters. Not just his retainers, but the headliners, the pleasurers, the spagooters. Like, there are so many different characters that get introduced here with so many different groups. It's hard to keep track of all of them, and a lot of them don't really serve much of a purpose. Some of them are just fucking thrown into the shitter at some point to be forgotten about, didn't really add anything except for like a couple cool moments maybe. But I think one of the characters that gets introduced that is a standout in this arc is Yasue. What a great and tragic character who does something that I hadn't seen the show explore before. Not going to spoil what it is, but I really love that character and what they do and bring to this arc. And in a close second for best new character introduced in the arc, Yamato. I mean, I think that's a given. If you've watched Wano, I imagine you probably like this character. Also, it brings Ace back into the story, which is super nice. And overall, Yamato slaps. So really, there's a ton of characters that get introduced. Yes, some of them you can wipe your ass with because they don't do much, but there are so many that get introduced that are extremely good. Like Yasue, Yamato, Kanjuro, also not a new character introduced in this arc, but what Kanjuro goes through and what happens there, very well done. But without going too deep, overall it really is kind of a mixed bag. There are times where the writing is great for this arc, and times where it's kind of a disaster. It really is. Like Jack, for example, is terrible. Like, they hype up Jack early, before even getting to Wano. Jack has a lot of hype. He's the first, massive, big, scary thing from Wano. And he does nothing. He's a fucking fart in the wind. He is relegated almost like a joke in this arc. And I just have to ask why. Like, I don't really get why. And Kaido, the big bad, like the ultimate villain of Wano, he's kind of two-dimensional. Like, he's not a very complex character. They spend a little bit of time with his backstory, but not a lot. Like, not to the same degree as someone like Dofi, for example. Like, it was just kind of, Luffy going up against cartoonishly bad guy. And that's a little underwhelming. Like, Big Mom, I think, is a better villain than Kaido. And I really wanted to love Kaido more than I did, especially because the fight is so cool. But there's just not a whole lot of depth that they give Kaido in this arc. Again, there's a couple things sprinkled here and there, like especially with Odin, like with the fight against Odin, how it came down to Odin basically being, deceived by someone on the sidelines, where someone changed their face and it distracted Odin, and then Kaido got the finishing blow on him, and Kaido was so upset with how that ended that he killed the person responsible for that deception. And he shows immense respect to Odin in his final moments before being boiled alive. I guess that's a spoiler. Well, that's not a spoiler because you only learn about Odin through flashbacks. You already go in with the knowledge Odin is dead, so probably not a spoiler. Point is, there's only little tiddlywinks of Kaido development throughout the arc, but overall he just stays as kind of just big bad guy and not much else to him, which I thought was a little disappointing. Like his surrounding characters, I thought actually had more depth. Like King introduces a whole lot of new stuff to the equation. So that, I think, is probably the biggest shortcoming when it comes to writing, that the villain just, I think, was a little weak. I still like Kaido as like this monstrous, hulking, terrifying presence. He is undoubtedly the strongest character we have seen in the show so far. I just wish he was also really well written at the same time for the arc. So yeah, overall, I really liked Wano. I think it's a strong arc. It has its shortcomings, but as long as you're using One Piece or Onigashima paste, those shortcomings are much shorter than they would be if you were watching the whole episodes with all of the extracurriculars slapped on there that don't really contribute anything to the actual plot or the development of the arc. So yeah, just wanted to give you my little One Piece update. I will be caught up by the time it comes back from hiatus. One Piece is on hiatus, if you don't know. It's coming back in a few months. I don't really remember when. But I will be fully caught up by then. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah.
We're coming up on a very special 5-year anniversary for a personal journey of mine. If it was alcoholism, I'd be getting a chip for this achievement right now, but I'm receiving a very different kind of gift for it. First, I need to ask, though, what have you done for 5 years straight with unwavering discipline and gusto? Mewing? Maybe? Yeah, and what do you have to show for it, tough guy? You still got that soft chin. What about jelking? You a big jelker? Spent the last 5 years in the laboratory desperately trying to put a few inches on that pathetic little meteors? Well, what if I told you that 5 years could have been better spent doing what I was doing? Watching One Piece from start to current. Over 1,100 episodes. Please, hold your applause, I'm no hero. I just did what I thought needed to be done to finally stop getting bombarded with the question of why I didn't like One Piece. I started this journey 5 years ago, which feels like the blink of an eye now in the grand scheme of my One Piece journey, because I had tried numerous times to get into it and just never fell in love with it. But every time I would stream, I'd always be getting the question about, what's wrong with you, Charles? You gotta screw loose to not like One Piece. So I started it out of spite, and I gotta tell you, sports fans, the first year or so of that journey, for the first 200 to 300 episodes, were brutal. Trying to stay awake watching those arcs was a more difficult boss battle than trying to kick a heroin addiction. It was tough. But I pushed through, I persisted, and I've been giving you steady updates once a year since, because after about 300 episodes, I did fall in love with One Piece. Experts may call it Stockholm Syndrome. I call it just objective improvements in the show itself. And I understand in the manga, everyone always says this, the pacing for the earlier arcs is just significantly better in the manga as opposed to the anime. And I imagine they're probably right, but I'd committed to watching the show. And I think once we start getting into Water 7 territory, the show really hits its stride. And it maintains that. The show does get a drastic improvement not only in animation, but in pacing, and I genuinely think everything in it starts to elevate. So I'm extremely happy I did push through and catch up with the show, because it is extraordinary. So now that I'm caught up, I'm just going to give you all of my thoughts, kind of as a all-encompassing debriefing, because like I said, I've been giving you yearly-ish updates on my One Piece progress. But I just want to put a nice little bow on all my thoughts on One Piece as a whole. And I guess I'll get into the nitty-gritty here, the spaghetti and meatballs of Egghead specifically, since that's obviously the most recent arc. But anyway, overall, I love One Piece, like I said. I think the show offers some extremely high highs, but with that comes some lows as well. In particular, Fishman Island. That is my least favorite arc in the entire series. I hated that. That was a slog to get through, and I found so little to like about Fishman Island. And I know I've yapped quite a bit about my disdain for that arc, and I'm not going to go too deep into it here, but just know that shit is poop. I do not like the green eggs and ham of Fishman Island. But my favorite arcs are as followed, in this order. My favorite arc is Marineford, followed by Innie's Lobby, followed by Dressrosa. And the more thought I put into it, the harder it became to choose what are my definitive favorite arcs, because there are some turbo bangers in here. So it's always been a bit fluid, but the one that's never changed as my favorite arc is Marineford. That one's pretty unbeatable, but the rest have kind of moved here and there, ebbed and flowed. And I know Dressrosa in particular is a bit of a contentious pick to be in my top 3 arcs. Worth noting, I watched One Piece, so it cut out a lot of filler, which Dressrosa was apparently famous for. I didn't get that experience. I got just a really high quality, very compelling arc that I loved from start to finish. So maybe my Dressrosa experience was very different than a normal anime watcher's experience if they watched all the filler and stuff. One Piece did an extraordinary job of keeping everything flowing, keeping it moving, and it was great. I really, really like that arc, but I don't think anything will probably ever beat Marineford. I mean, I guess I can't say for sure because I don't know where One Piece is going to go, but Marineford was just a culmination of everything that had been building for so long in an extremely satisfying and emotional arc. This arc also opened my third eye to a painful revelation that I may not know what the One Piece is yet, but I do know what the one truth is, that Mihawk is a fraud. Mihawk clashed briefly with Vista in the Marineford arc, and it became abundantly clear that this man might just not be the world's greatest swordsman. Maybe he's like King from One Punch Man, where everyone just perceives him as this unbeatable, indomitable force of nature, but in reality, he's just not. We haven't seen Mihawk do a single fucking thing since he clashed with Zoro at the Baratie like 20 years ago. Like, it is so sad. Like, it is actually so sad. He just gets by on aura and aura alone. Speaking of world's greatest swordsman, for the longest time throughout this series, my favorite character was Zoro. But now that I'm finally caught up, it's still Zoro. It was then and it is now. People like to boil him down to just being like a very one-dimensional flat character, but I just think that they're not watching the same show. That's so disingenuous. I can recognize that his motivations and a lot of the side quests, we'll call them, that he goes on are simpler than the rest of the crew, but that doesn't mean that he lacks as much depth as they have. I think Zoro is a perfect character to contrast the rest of the crew, and I always appreciate where he ends up throughout the arcs. My favorite villain is Doflamingo, but my most slept-on superstar is Magellan. I'm somewhat of a Magellan maniac. I believe that if that man could get off the toilet for even just an additional 3 or so hours and they'd let him spread his fucking wings outside of his prison, that man could be an actual threat. Now, of course, it's just pure delusion and hopium to believe that we might see him again engaging in the overall plot of One Piece. I think his role is kaput. He himself is a prisoner of the shitter, and he will probably never leave Impel Down. But I think if he ever did, he would genuinely be an extremely powerful character, even in like the current landscape of things. My most controversial take on One Piece is that Sabo is genuinely a fanfic character that you have to suspend disbelief in order to accept his presence in this series. I really, like, the more and more I think about Sabo, the less and less sense it makes for him to even be here. Just this secret third brother that just happens to pop up out of nowhere, and somehow he is the well-known second in command of the Revolutionary Army, a world-famous group, and yet somehow Ace, who himself is extremely notorious and high-ranking in the Whitebeard Pirates, never knew Sabo was alive? Was Ace illiterate? Maybe, but even if he was illiterate, why the fuck couldn't he see pictures in a newspaper? Did he never hear Sabo's name, even though apparently everyone knew about Sabo, who he was in the Revolutionary Army? And there was never anything in Ace's ear that was like, wait, Sabo, It's ringing a bell. My brother. It just doesn't compute, and especially the timing makes it even more fishy, where it feels like the sole reason behind Sabo's presence in the story is that he was drummed up conjured as a replacement to Ace. He just happens to come through after Ace's death. He also gets Ace's devil fruit. It really feels like Sabo's entire purpose was just to be a Ace replacement. And the way Sabo even is used in the story itself is very odd. He's kind of here as like this all-powerful, damn near omniscient presence who can do everything and is used exclusively for like these fake-out moments. So like, he goes to the world government and like, the five elders attack him. He might be dead, but he's not dead. He's on an island. The island gets blown up. Sabo might be dead. He's not dead. It's like, it's very weird. Sabo as a character just doesn't really fit with the rest of the characters One Piece introduces. And it just feels like the way in which he is put into the story feels very forced and very out of left field. Now, not to be confused with me being a Sabo hater, I don't even really dislike him or anything. It just feels very odd how he gets into this story in the first place and the way in which he is used in the story. But his scenes are hype. Like, it is a cool sequence when he, like, tries to save Cobra and everything. Like, it is cool to watch, but I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense how we even got to that point with Sabo in the first place is all. But still are cool sequences with Sabo, and I do think that he is an interesting character. Anyway, though, let's now dive into Egghead. So, when I was first watching Egghead, I was a pretty vocal Scrooge on it. I didn't really love the first half of the Egghead arc. The second half, however, significantly better and much more invested. I think the second half of Egghead has been really, really, really good. First half, bit of a snoozer, but I do think it was necessary to eat your vegetables first here in this case because it does help lay the foundation and build the stakes for what comes in the second half. But yeah, I really was not liking the first half of Egghead. I really didn't like the Seraphim, by the way. I didn't think that they were a strong addition to the One Piece story. Vegapunk, love Vegapunk. I love everything with Stella. I think that is so good, and I really think I can't remember if I've been doing spoilers when going through my One Piece journey. I think for the most part I have been, because a lot of the arcs that I've been covering are like fucking 15 years old. But I don't know if I should do spoilers for Egghead since it's still fresh. I'll try and I'm gonna have to get into spoilers. There's no way I can talk about some of the things I didn't like about it without getting into spoilers. Let's start with the things that I really liked. Kuma's backstory. My oh my, did they hit a grand slam with Kuma's backstory. That is probably the peak flashback. I don't want to use the word arc because it's not a flashback arc, but peak emotional character backstory so far in the show. I thought they really crushed Kuma's story. It is tragic from top to bottom, and his whole existence in the show is just agony. And even where he ends up in Egghead here, there's nothing happy about it. For a character that himself is so positive, despite everything he went through as a child, with his parents and himself being enslaved and them being killed in front of him, with his father being murdered in front of him, still trying to find the light and still holding on to the hope of that legendary hero that will come to save them, and then trying to make a difference with the Revolutionary Army and saving people, and then himself still being dealt such a bad hand. There's always fingers crossed, hoping something finally goes Kuma's way, but it never does. Even when he's raising Bonnie, she's gonna die if he doesn't give over his humanity to the world government, to Vegapunk, to turn into this soulless killing machine, basically. The Pacifista program, all based around him, a weapon for the government. And he does it out of love for his daughter. But to save her, he had to abandon her. And then she went on her own pirate journey quests. Now she's gotten the truth, wants revenge on the five elders who are overseeing the program, in particular, Saturn. And Saturn becomes like our main big bad of the arc, and I think he's a really good villain. And he's not alone. There are other villains there like Rob Lucci and Kaku, whom I do think they're good villains, but I do I didn't like the flip-flopping so many times there. I think that was a little overdone. I get why it's there. Stussy also being there. Her role was very cool. That was quite the plot twist reveal there with her role and everything. But even though I like Rob Lucci and Kaku, like their presence there, the amount of flip-flopping I think was just a bit excessive. But in addition to their presence being there, there's also Kizaru. And Kizaru is a very interesting villain because prior to this, we'd always seen him as just like this callous, uncaring, calm, cold, bad guy. Like, do I need to kill them? Fine, I suppose it would be stimulating. I am a little bored. Here I go, reluctantly killing for the sake of the government. And that's all you ever really got, so you're under the impression that he's just like this guy who will do pretty much everything and he won't feel anything. Just basically a heartless bad guy. Well, here we get a lot more fleshing out, a lot more backstory, and it turns out he is actually somewhat intertwined deeply with Bonnie, Kuma, Vegapunk. So when he is tasked by Saturn to kill Vegapunk and Bonnie, he really doesn't want to. You can start to see emotion in this character. When he does ultimately kill Vegapunk, he is anything but happy. And it feels like there's almost this sense of relief when Luffy is able to actually overpower him. And he makes like the treasonous decision to feed Luffy when Luffy was, out of energy, out of power, so that we can continue to fight against Saint Saturn. So we got a lot more out of him, and I thought it was really interesting, and I'm so curious to see what his motivations are. What does he want? What is his goal? What is he doing? It's so good the way a lot of these things were built up and how they were executed here so far in Egghead. This is also the arc in which we get the most exposition on the Void Century and filling in the blanks for everything that's been happening that has been a mystery to this point, like with the Poneglyphs, Joy Boy. Vegapunk gives a final message to the entire world, revealing so much information, much to the chagrin of the Five Elders, whom show up at Egghead to try and put the kibosh on the broadcast and shut everything down because they can't have these secrets getting out about what's happened in the past. It's just really satisfying now because it feels like we're finally starting to see the big picture. We're starting to get these breadcrumbs to follow for what it all means and what actually happened 800-900 years ago. Who is Joy Boy and everything? Who are the Five Elders in Emu? Like, what is all of this? It's so, it's hard to not wait on bated breath for the next episode and the next big reveal. Oh, also, one of my earlier complaints with this show, the whole series, is that there was always this hesitation to kill someone, even if their role in it had been finished, their whole arc. Arlong or someone. Pretty much a villain who served their purpose that I don't think we'll ever see again. The show still had a tendency to just, knock them out and move on. They fainted, and that's it. Never to be seen again. And they did that with every character, not just villains, but any character I thought that they were setting up for a death, didn't die, most notably Pell, so long ago. And I get with Pell there was a lot of stuff going on at the time there with Pell, which maybe led for him not ultimately facing a demise there. I get that, but that's just another example that I'm pulling from. There are countless others of characters that I thought should have died there to amplify the emotional stakes of what was being built to. With Egghead, though, no longer does it feel like there is a hesitation to kill off characters. There is a lot of character deaths in here that I didn't expect, that I didn't see coming, that are important characters, so it really does feel like we're reaching the end game here. I just wanted to make a mention of that. No longer is that a complaint I have with recent One Piece. They are actively killing characters. It feels like it's getting much more intense. Now, one of my biggest complaints so far about Egghead, though, and it's not even in the first half, it actually is in the second half, bringing all five elders here, I think just kind of made them seem weaker than they are. So, I like Saint Saturn as a villain. I think he's a great villain. But him actually fighting Luffy, he looks like a bitch. And I get Luffy, as the new Joy Boy, is supposed to be absolutely fucking stomping this man. He's basically blue waffling all over Saint Saturn. It's not even really a contest. But Saint Saturn as a fighter is really underwhelming. He's basically like the Derek Zoolander of the One Piece universe. He has one move. He has one look. And it's just by throwing out his little spider legs, and that's it. He doesn't do anything besides that. Even when he's not fighting Luffy and he's like going after the rest of the Straw Hat crew, he can't even like kill them because he's only using his spider legs and nothing else. And then he's like, oh, this is a waste of my fucking time. I'm just going to run. So he does. So he goes to the next thing. These insects, I won't bother with them. Like, it just makes him look like not a very terrifying presence. And when they brought the other 5 elders in there, the same phenomenon happened where, because now there's so many, they can't give a whole lot of focus to them. So instead, they all only do one thing. Workery, I think, is the best example of that. That fucking goober is the equivalent to that goddamn Rick and Morty butter robot whose only purpose is to serve butter. All Workery can do is go into boar form and charge. That is all they show him doing. All he does is just charge. So like when the Giants arrive, which, by the way, super hype. I'm extremely excited that Elbaf is being brought into the mega mix here. Bragi Dory back in the fold now. It's very exciting that they're there. They're having a good time. They're super powerful. And Workery, all he does is just charge and headbutt. That's it. It just makes him seem kind of lame. He's like a E-Honda player in Street Fighter 6 just spamming that one headbutt special. That is all Workery does. So, like, it just makes it feel like he's not really a threat. He only can do one thing, and he's not even succeeding at it. Like, he's not even doing a good job with headbutting. And that's just so underwhelming for these 5 elders, whom we have this entire time been led to believe probably the most fearsome, terrifying creatures on the fucking face of that planet. And yet here all 5 of them are just getting toyed with, really. Getting laughed at, getting blasted around. Like, they can't even stop a broadcast. Like, they can't even find the transponder snail and destroy enough things to stop it. Granted, they have to be a little careful with the Mother Flame, I get that. But they just don't look as strong as we've been led to believe, because now all 5 of them were here, still basically getting embarrassed. Like, so far, there hasn't been a moment where I'm actually concerned about a character because of the 5 elders' presence, because they're just not good at doing anything they aim to do here. I think it would have just been far stronger if it was only Saint Saturn who was up against everyone, the Giants, Luffy, the Straw Hat crew, all while trying to stop Vegapunk's desperate broadcast to the rest of the world to get the truth out there. And Saint Saturn, against all these odds, is still making it a close fight. That, I think, would have been a really strong showcase for the 5 elders and how scary they can be, that one of them is able to go against all the strongest in the universe there. But the fact that all 5 show up and still can't succeed, it makes it seem like, well, Luffy will probably end up just fucking dog walking them at some point. Like, it doesn't really feel like they're as terrifyingly powerful as I thought they were now. Whereas, again, if it was just Saturn there, I'd be left thinking like, damn, this is just one of them able to, do so much across all of Egghead here. I can't even imagine what'll happen when the other 4 get involved. But now I don't have to imagine. I know what happens when the other 4 get involved. Still fucking nothing. They still can't, kill even, a giant or anything. They can't stop a broadcast. They can't do shit. Like, it just makes it feel like the 5 elders are just kind of weak. That's just, my main complaint so far with Egghead. It kind of took a lot of the oomph out of the 5 elders. Anyway, though, that's really, my only major complaint with the second half of Egghead. Like I said, didn't love the first half, but maybe it just wasn't my cup of tea. There's really nothing in there in particular I think was bad. Even with the 5 elders, I don't think it's bad. It's just, I don't know, it felt a little underwhelming given how much had been built up about them is all. But overall, I think it's a very strong arc, and I'm really, really happy that I caught up to One Piece and I get to enjoy this in real time now as we're entering, the end of this legendary series. I think it's a masterpiece. I will say, though, I don't expect anyone to follow suit and, force themselves to watch 300 episodes if they're not enjoying it. I think it's totally fine if you just don't like One Piece after X amount of episodes to just say it's not for you and be done with it. There's nothing wrong with that. I probably would have done the same thing if it wasn't for me being so spiteful. I probably wouldn't have pushed through as hard as I did, and then I did actually fall in love with it. Again, not Stockholm Syndrome, just an acquired taste. My taste buds got a little more refined is all, as the show got better. Anyway, I just wanted to give you this yearly update here, basically. Fully caught up, we fucking did it. That's really about it. See ya.